News that no one had ever imagined came from Los Angeles. In the midst of the busy activities of BTS members, a direct statement from Taehyung about JIN's health condition suddenly turned the atmosphere into one full of anxiety. Armies around the world grew worried, especially when small details from the statement suggested that JIN's condition was not as simple as many had thought. The situation became even more dramatic when Jungkook, who was in the same location, was said to be unable to hold back his tears after hearing the news delivered by Taehyung. This situation began when JIN had just closed a long series of exhausting tour activities. From the start, fans had already seen signs of fatigue that could not be hidden. However, since JIN is known as someone who always puts on a smile and hides his pain, many thought that he was fine. Everything changed when JIN decided to fly to Los Angeles, where Taehyung and Jungkook happened to already be with their own separate agendas. JIN's arrival, which should have brought joy, was instead greeted with shocking medical news. Taehyung, who has long been known for his calm demeanor and for rarely speaking about his members' personal conditions, this time took a different step. He chose to deliver the latest update about JIN directly, not through a long statement, but through short words that left deep worry. In his statement, Taehyung said that JIN is in the process of recovery, and this is not something that can be taken lightly. Those short words immediately sparked major speculation. What exactly is happening to JIN? Taehyung's remarks were reinforced by the fact that JIN had undergone medical examinations as soon as he arrived in Los Angeles. A doctor who treated JIN was reported to have given a shocking diagnosis, which left Taehyung seemingly speechless. This reaction had already become the subject of much discussion, but this time it was different. Taehyung himself admitted that JIN's condition indeed required serious attention. At the same time, Jungkook, who had already been in Los Angeles, also heard the news. According to eyewitnesses, Jungkook could not hold back his emotions. He was seen crying when Taehyung finished speaking. Jungkook's expression could not be hidden. He really cried, as if his own fear and pain were revealed, said one person who witnessed the moment. This strengthened suspicions that JIN's situation was more severe than imagined. For armies, this moment became one of the most worrying points. Fans wrote thousands of messages of prayer, hope, and fear. Many recalled the moments when JIN continued to smile even though his body already looked exhausted, and now that harsh realities seemed to be openly revealed. The big question then arose: what diagnosis did JIN actually receive? Why did it make Taehyung feel the need to deliver the news himself, and even make Jungkook cry? Is this just exhaustion from a long tour, or is there a more complex health problem? Until now, there has been no official statement from the agency. Hybe itself chose not to comment much, only stating that JIN was under intensive medical monitoring and receiving the best care. However, the agency's silence only raised more questions than answers. Speculation among fans then spread widely. Some believed that JIN was suffering from a serious health issue caused by prolonged exhaustion, while others suspected that it was connected to a problem that had long been hidden. The fact that Taehyung said the words, "This is not something that can be taken lightly," made everything seem more urgent. But behind all the worries, one thing that also drew great attention was Jungkook's reaction. For many fans, Jungkook's tears reflected how deep the emotional bond is among BTS members. Jungkook is known as someone who has difficulty hiding his feelings, and in this moment, his emotions truly broke. That act not only showed his love for JIN, but also sent a strong message that the condition was indeed very serious. Now, armies around the world can only wait for further news. Taehyung has shared a piece of the truth. Jungkook has shown his concern through tears, and JIN is still undergoing treatment. The question is, when will the full truth be revealed? Will Hybe soon issue an official statement to calm the public? Or will this situation continue to be a mystery that brings deep worry to millions of fans? One thing is clear: the latest news from Taehyung and Jungkook's emotional reaction has changed the atmosphere in an instant. From the joy of welcoming JIN in Los Angeles, it turned into tension full of tears. Armies can only hope that the next news will bring relief, not greater fear. Until that moment arrives, the big question still hangs. What is really happening to Jean? The uncertainty surrounding Jin's health condition has also triggered debates among media observers and music industry insiders. Some point out that the pressure of global tours, media appearances, and ongoing commitments may have pushed Jin's physical limits. Others argue that the lack of transparency from the agency has fueled unnecessary panic, leaving armies to speculate without clarity. What makes the situation even more complex is the emotional involvement of the members themselves. Taehyung's statement, though brief, carried undeniable weight, and Jungkook's tears made the reality feel heavier than ever for millions of fans. The silence feels unbearable. They are waiting for answers, not rumors. They are demanding honesty, not vague reassurances. Until the agency breaks its silence, every small gesture from the members will continue to be dissected and analyzed. And now, the only thing certain is that Jin's condition has become a turning point, not just for BTS, but for the fans who stand by them. After the wave of commotion that shook social media, it is important to place all information in a clear framework. The news about Jin's condition that was linked to Taehyung's statement and Jungkook's tears is actually not entirely true. The story grew from exaggerated fragments of information, developed by rumors, then fueled by the overflowing emotions of fans who love BTS with all their hearts. When a short sentence from Taehyung was interpreted excessively, the impact became like a spark in a dry field. It spread quickly, was difficult to control, and in the end created a huge fire in the form of mass panic. The fact is, Taehyung did say that Jin was in the process of recovery after a long tour. However, what was not widely reported was the full context of his words. Taehyung never mentioned that the condition was serious or dangerous. He only emphasized that Jin needed time to really rest. Unfortunately, that fragment of his statement was then spread without context, which led to a false interpretation, as if Jin was facing a serious health issue, when in reality, he was only experiencing ordinary physical exhaustion, which is natural for an artist after a very tight tour schedule. That exhaustion was not something permanent or dangerous, but rather a sign that the body simply needed time to get fit again. The same goes for the news about Jungkook, who is said to have cried upon hearing Taehyung's explanation. The real fact is, Jungkook was indeed seen emotional at a meeting with fans in Los Angeles. However, that moment had nothing to do with Jin's medical news. Jungkook is known as someone very expressive, and in that occasion, he was simply expressing his longing and love for the fans and for the other BTS members who were temporarily separated because of their respective schedules. His tears were an expression of love and longing, not tears from hearing bad news about Jin's health. From here, it is clear how two unrelated pieces of events, Taehyung's words and Jungkook's emotional expression, were combined by certain parties, thus producing a dramatic narrative that was in fact inaccurate. This narrative eventually triggered a wave of worry, even making ARMY around the world believe that Jin was in critical condition. HYB, as BTS's official agency, has also confirmed in its short statement that Jin's health is in good condition. They said that Jin only underwent routine checks after a long journey, something that has already become a standard procedure for artists with such tight schedules. There was no dangerous diagnosis, no serious medical problem. All the news linking Jin to an emergency condition is speculation that is not true. It is important to remember that such rumors often grow because of the massive public attention toward BTS. With a global fanbase so large, every small detail of the members' lives can easily be twisted, exaggerated, then publicized as facts. In reality, what is more appropriate is to wait for official statements from related parties, not to draw conclusions from incomplete fragments of information on the other side. This phenomenon also illustrates how deep ARMY's love for BTS is. The widespread worry, the constant prayers, even the trending topics that dominated social media are real evidence that fans truly care about the condition of their idols. However, this concern must be balanced with a critical attitude. ARMY needs to learn to filter information, so as not to get trapped in a narrative game deliberately made dramatic just to attract clicks and attention. The truth that can be confirmed now is, Jin is fine. He only needs time to rest and recover his strength after a long tour. Taehyung did indeed deliver that message, but his intention was to calm fans so they would not demand more activities from Jin in the near future. As for Jungkook, His tears were a reflection of warmth and longing, not a sign of a health tragedy befalling his Hyung. Therefore, the conclusion to be drawn from all this commotion is simple but important. The news about Jin's condition that made it seem like he was critical is not true. It was merely the result of a series of misinterpretations, fragments of information without context, and emotional impulses that eventually turned into a big rumor. What is true is that JIN is in good health, only a little tired after intense activities, and is now enjoying his recovery period under standard medical supervision. ARMY should be able to breathe easily. There is no reason to panic, no urgent matter to be feared. On the contrary, this moment can serve as a lesson that love for BTS must be accompanied by caution in filtering information. Do not let unclear news ruin the mood and make hearts restless. In the end, JIN will return with his signature smile, bringing good news, not bad news. Taehyung will continue to give support in his own simple way, and Jungkook will remain the figure full of sincere emotions for fans. All of this is proof that BTS is not just a music group, but a family that always protects each other.